congratulations on your ASC award nomination. Yeah, I mean, you won back in 2014, and here you are again. You shot 2 episodes of Cabinet of Curiosities, and I'd love to, talk to you about, both of those, but in particular, of course, your nominated episode, The Outside. So, yeah, I mean, congratulations, and I'd love to just dive right in, from the beginning of how you got involved with the show.
Sure. Well, I guess it started actually with the first episode that I did, Lot 36, with Guillermo Navarro directing. So I came on to do that, and that was, I guess, earlier. That was in the summertime, and I got to know the show. And I guess there was a that episode that Lily was doing, The Outside, hadn't been slotted in yet, and they asked me if I wanted to do another episode. So it came up, and they asked me to have a talk with Lily, and the rest is history.
Amazing. So, it is a show that is definitely very different episode to episode. So, having already worked on the show before, but coming on for another episode, like, what was your process of how you approach the material and like finding the, visual style for it?
Well, I guess the biggest challenge with that show, or the most unique thing about it, was the fact that it was an anthology series. So the first episode I did had really no stylistic connection or relation to the episode I did with Lily, The Outside. So really, it was kind of, I guess, finding what is the essence of that particular story, because each one is a standalone story, different kind of setting and time and place and all that. And I also knew a little bit about what the other episodes that they were making were, because Tamara, the production designer, was doing all of them. So just spending time with her at the office and seeing what they were up to, it's like, wow, like each one is so different. And I could see the artwork on the wall for each episode. So it was really kind of knowing that it's really about what serves that particular story, and like kind of let your imagination go wild to just tell the story in the best way that you want to make it as a little team. We're a little team making this movie together, kind of thing. It's like a mini feature. So that's kind of how we approached it.
Yeah, absolutely. So was there, anything in particular that was outside inspiration that you brought into the style that you created for this episode?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess it started with the conceptual artwork that Tamara had made. So we looked at a lot of that, and she'd been working on that before Lily and I both came on board for that particular episode. And then, of course, Lily had her own references. She had a lot of references. She had just done a feature that she showed me, Mona Lisa and the Blood Moon. So I'd watched that, and her use of the wide lens in that film was something she wanted to bring into this film as well. So that got very specific. She had a very specific lens that she wanted to use, and the type of lensing. So immediately, as we were doing our scouting and research, we were bringing around this like wide angle zoom, the 15-40 Cook. We were taking it with us on scouts and looking at things through the actual lens, and I could see the way that Lily was actually using it. She was always carrying it and looking at things really close and wide, and we knew that was kind of the approach. And then from there, we were designing everything in the sets. Like all of the interiors of Stacy's home is a set on stage, so we knew that we had to design everything to be seen in every direction, and to know that all the windows could be seen in a shot if it's day or night. And from there, it was kind of like making sure that the frame is always filled with detail, because we were going to look in every direction with a wide angle lens, because we were almost always on a 15 mil. In some cases we even went to a 10. So it was that actually informs a lot of how you do it, because there's only so many places you can put your lights and equipment, and it pretty much dictates that you're going to be using one camera, because you can't really get another camera into a shot when the lens is like this far away from someone's face.
So when it came to figuring out lighting, did you do a lot of use of practicals, lighting outside, or how did you work around how wide your angle of view was?
Yeah, definitely it was a bit of both. Having a good discussion about practical placement, where they're going to be in the rooms, what kind of light they throw off. So I worked pretty closely with Tamara and her set deck team to just really choose the right kind of lights in the sets. And then how do you treat the windows, and making sure that we had enough variability with different qualities of light we could get through the windows, knowing that we're going to see them, we're going to see the backdrops, and we're going to see the dressing out the windows, and also how does that light affect the room itself. And we have day and night and all those variabilities. So that it was kind of a process of just how do we make this space lit as much as we can with what it is, and then only augmenting where we are able to, really.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense. So is there, a particular challenge that arose from this episode, a sequence or scene that you'd like to pick out, something you're proud of achieving?
Sure. I mean, it can start with really the opening shot, because that was the marriage of the real street and the actual house that we based the interior on, going down the street and going through that front window and finding Stacy in the kitchen in one continuous shot. The trick with that is that we actually we shot them backwards, in the sense that we actually shot the studio portion first and then the street shot, and we knew what the street shot was going to be. So we kind of had to guess roughly where the camera would start at the window, knowing we were going to execute it by having a camera car with a crane on it and actually shoot in reverse and drive away from the house. So we knew we were going to do that. So we had to kind of guess, when we did the shot in the studio, well, roughly how high will the lens be from the ground in the driveway in the real house to actually have the crane go through the window at the right angle. So we had to kind of guess at that, as far as how is the transition going to work. And I think it actually turned out pretty well. And also not knowing that we'd done tests of the real location at the time of day, of like, well, what's the outside going to look like in terms of the exterior? Because when we get into the house, we're going to see out the windows, and we have to match how the light levels of what twilight is outside the windows before we actually shot that outside shot. So it was kind of working backwards and just trying to plan it as much as we could. So we went to the actual location and did some testing to figure out what's, the exact time of day of when we're going to shoot it. And we had that window of like, it's, dusky. So with that 20-minute window where you can get like 3 or 4 takes in, and that's it. So I was pretty happy with how that turned out, because it was a lot of working backwards and trying to just really plan it kind of by reverse engineering.
Yeah, it seems kind of mind-bending, even thinking about trying to, put those things together. Yeah, that sounds like an exciting challenge, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, what emotionally drew you to this story and to the sensibility of this show in general?
Well, I think there it certainly has Del Toro's fingerprint on it by having a slight dark sense of humor. They both have that in them. There's a creepiness, there's a certain kind of uncomfortableness of the subject matter that's like sort of off and a little bit, unusual in that sense. So I think that they both had sort of a dark sense of humor. That was certainly a connection between the two. And I think, if anything, it actually amped up for Lily's episode. The outside is actually even darker and more kind of funny in that sense. And also the statement that it makes. I mean, Lily was telling the story from a woman's perspective of like, what is the obsession with beauty, and what's it like, the whole process of cosmetics and the superficialness of that, and the beauty industry, and the brainwashing of advertising. I mean, she had a good take on that, and especially it actually came from a graphic novel that was written by a woman who basically, that was the same story, but Lily's take on it kind of expanded it. So that for me was kind of an interesting process of seeing the conversion of the graphic novel and how does it get told in a visual sense, and also just Lily's take on it as a woman who has experienced being exposed to advertising and the cosmetic industry, and like, what does that say? And even just the whole thing of like the actual advertising that we see in the film, like all the commercials. We spent a lot of time going through like old commercials from the 80s, and like really, like, I'd never actually spent that much time looking at that much stock to really pick what are these statements we're going to make with these little commercials, because they actually are a little character in the film. The little TV moments of her watching TV late at night are a statement of the mindset and the brainwashing of that kind of, that time period. Of there's a certain time period that advertising represents too. So I think that was fun of being part of that statement, making that statement of advertising and the cosmetic sort of brainwashing of the world.
What does this nomination mean to you?
Well, what's interesting? Of course, I was familiar with some of the other work because one of the other episodes is nominated, and actually went and looked at everyone else's work to get a sense, because some of it I wasn't familiar with, and that's the interesting process of being part of any kind of awards thing like this, is actually looking at like what's the other work out there, because you have no idea how other things are going to be compared against your work, or just seeing what other work there is out there. And I was the category is really diverse. Like there's so many different things in that category that for me it says that this episode is so different for me. Like it's probably the most unusual thing I've done visually in a long time, that it's kind of, I don't know, I guess there's sort of a nice honor to that of something that's so that you taken a risk with, that you don't treat as your typical kind of beauty approach, and you just go for like the grit factor of what that story is meant to have in it, and that it was recognized in that way. So that's, it's nice. It was unexpected for sure, and that's a nice surprise. And also seeing that everything else in that category is so different. It's like it's all diverse work, and they're all strong in their own way. It's like, wow, it's quite a range.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. And that's so exciting that this was kind of stepping outside of not necessarily your comfort zone, but maybe like a lot of what you had been doing, and to take a step creatively in a different direction and be rewarded with that is really awesome. Yeah. So I mean, are there, any of your fellow nominees, either in your category or in any other, that just really inspired you creatively this year that you'd like to give a shout out to?
Yeah, I would give a shout out to Kim C. Miles. I know
Mm-hmm.
Kim a little bit, and I followed his work for a while, and he's done a lot of different kind of work too. So it's interesting to see people doing different things. We all sort of get known for doing a certain kind of work. So it's occasions like this when you get to take stock of some, your colleagues' work, and you see someone doing something. It's like, oh, that's different. They've done something different, or you kind of get to admire their ability to change styles and kind of reinvent themselves, or try something different. And I've seen Kim do that, so it's pretty cool to see that he got recognized as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and also for, a really creative show, as well. So that's awesome. Well, those are really the things I wanted to ask